up, faithful? How's everybody doing tonight? Oh yeah. Wait, am I muted? No, I'm not. Okay.
No, you're not me. I
Man,
can hear you. I can hear
yeah.
you.
I just panicked for a second. Like, wait a minute, hold on. Am I seeing no level? But I'm good. Yeah. Oh man, here we go. Monday night is draft week. How you guys doing? How you feeling?
Good. Good. We got the draft coming up. I got a couple
Mm-hmm.
days scheduled off of work just because I had no idea how late it's going to go. It has a start time, it doesn't have an end time.
No.
So, it's kind of just one of those things. And, me, Bryant, and Kenny were doing our thing, all 3 days. So, and, so I did my math and wrong. I thought Saturday was going to be my 100th video. But
Uh-huh.
then so I go live Wednesday, the trivia, that's just that's a tradition. But then we're going to go live Thursday, and we're simulcasting. So that's video 99. My 100th video is going to be Friday. It's going to be day 2.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's my 100th video on YouTube, you know. Um
That's a
doesn't
big
feel like
event.
it's been
That's a
that many.
monument.
Isn't it?
It's fast how it creeps up on you though. Are you planning on doing anything? Want to celebrate? Want to have a drink? Have a cold one?
Well, probably will. Probably will. Um I mean, why not? That's my 100th video. We just did
Yeah.
Bryant's 200th. Like, I think it
Nice.
was what was it Saturday, Bryant, or was it?
I gotta check, but I believe it was Saturday. I'm confused if it
But
was Friday
yeah,
or
yeah,
Saturday officially.
yeah. We
But
just did his 200th, and it's crazy. It's crazy how I would say how fast it goes. But my first video was on July 31st of 2023. So it's I don't stream every day, so
Hmm. Yeah, but you
took a
still
while
hitting
to
the
get there.
milestone. I mean, congrats, Bryant. 200. That's an achievement, man. It's
thank
a
you.
big milestone. Yeah. And David, you got yours coming up, so that's good stuff. For guys that don't do it every day, like some people do, you're still able to hit those benchmarks, which is very cool. See, small channels can survive. They can thrive. You just got to support people. So tell a friend to tell a friend, as Bryant would say. Everybody jump in here, Let's all support each other. That's what it's about.
Yep.
Yes,
Speaking of
indeed.
tell a friend, we got Kenny 49er Culp in the chat. That's our
Indeed.
guy
About
there.
to
He'll
shout
be
these guys out. Kenny Cope, thanks for joining. Cardcast is here. Man, Onshow is back in the saddle, doing his thing once again. Good to see you guys. But
Oh yeah, on show. Yeah, I did mean Jordan Morgan in the chat just a little bit ago. When it comes to I heard he has T-Rex arms, but I'm not saying he can't play tackle, but he's probably
right.
like the shorter the arms, the more likely you're going to be a guard in the NFL,
They're
right?
gonna kick you inside. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. That's just the way it is. Um, speaking of draft, I didn't want to go into player specifics because there's going to be plenty of mock drafts to come, and we've talked about players a lot. But what I want to talk about is position, if you will. So I did a little digging, if you will, into the so-called draft experts to see, just what they thought position wise. So I looked around, I found 35 of them across the country and just like kind of tabulated what they thought the 49ers would be drafting at 31. David, if you had to think of like what the top position they would say we would draft, what do you think it would be?
Cornerback.
Corner. All right, Bryant, what do you think?
Kool-Aid.
No, just position, not the actual player, but a position.
That's That's who I don't even look at the position. That's the name that keeps going on everyone's board.
So you're saying corner as well. Okay. Well, actually, like of the 35, 14 said we would take an offensive tackle. They're thinking we're going offensive tackle specifically. All right.
Wow.
Now, ranked second on that list was cornerback, with 9 people saying we would take a corner. Which is a bit of a drop off. So you see, people think we're just all focused on the offensive line, really. 9 was corner.
Well,
Wait, let me just run through the numbers real quick. So 14 said
okay.
offensive tackle, 9 said corner, 7 said edge rusher specifically, right? So defensive end. 2 said interior offensive lineman, so it could be a center guard. 2 said defensive tackle, and only 1 said a wide receiver. Do you think they're on to something there? Are they on track?
Well, if you look at our visits, and I'm not talking the 30 to 30 on 30s, I'm talking like overall who we've talked to, the pro days we've gone to, who we talked to at the combine. If you add it all up, there are a lot of offensive linemen on that list.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. So that screams we're going to be taking one of these guys at 31. But as for which one, that's about that's about as clear as muddy water at this point.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know who's going to be available at 31. We don't know what's going to happen. We could trade up, right? This last mock draft, I decided to grab a semi-sized gas truck, drive around the Empire, spraying everywhere, and then I threw a match on my way out, and I traded Ayuk. Um, but I honestly expected a whole bunch of comments going, "Hey, what are you doing?" But no one said anything. I'm kind of disappointed, folks. Like you need to, come at me in the comments. I asked for it twice, but yeah, I mean, I don't know who's going to be available at 31. Some teams reach, they'll take a player that most teams don't have graded in the top 30. Which makes more players fall, right? But, at this point, I'm not necessarily set on a tackle. I'm honestly thinking it's going to be best player available, but it's going to be out of offensive tackle, inside offensive line, center guard, or then, beyond that, if they're not, if they don't have anyone with a number 1 grade, or because right now I guess we have. I was watching Steph and she said we have 22 players that have a first round grade, but we're picking at 31. So the mathing doesn't really work out there, right?
The math ain't mathing. Yeah, John Lynch said that in his press conference. He's got 22 players with first round grades. So at 31, that isn't working out. So does that mean we then attempt to trade up, as you mentioned before? And shout out to Mariah in the house. Always great to see you.
But I honestly think at this point, that's hard to tell what we're going to do. When draft night comes and it starts, and that's when that's when the magic happens, and we find out if we're just going to stand pat at 31, or maybe we'll see, a big run on the tackles that are supposed to be, that could be available at 31. And then the Niners will, hit the pause button on the mock draft and trade up. So, But I mean, and then the Ayuk situation, John Lynch, he came out and he said, "We're not, we're not trading Ayuk." But I've heard this before from NFL teams, not necessarily us, but NFL teams, like say Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks, we're not trading Russell Wilson. Yeah, that was a month before they traded him to the Broncos. right?
But that's a different situation. Russell's much older. Heart you, Mariah. Russell's much older, and his play had declined. So I think Pete was being a bit of a politician there. And when they saw they could get a haul for him, they did. Ayuk is an ascending player. He's a young ascending player, right? He still hasn't even hit his prime. He's still going upward. So I think, and we've talked about this, long-term plans, I'm pretty sure they want him here.
Well, but you remember we've talked about like the contract situation. You
Mm-hmm.
can structure it properly where his money ain't hitting until down the road. But then
Yeah.
that's also when Brock Purdy's money's going to be hitting.
Yeah.
So then, but at that point, you have expiring contracts George Kittle. One day he's going to want to retire and go to WWE. Let's be honest, that's where he's headed.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to have Trent Williams come off the books. You're going to have Debo. All these
Exactly.
guys are going to start coming off the books, and that's actually what makes drafts like this important. Because if we don't get 3, 4 good players that are going to help us, long term stay good, then it's going to hurt us in the long term because we're not going to be good.
Well, I think we're going to be good, but we got to hit on players. And drafting well is important, and identifying those young players is very important. And we've talked about this in the past, and I know, Bryant, you're a big proponent of this, that we don't play our young players enough to be able to identify them for future seasons, right? We can go down the list. There's tons of them. So, with this draft, with this one and next year's draft, to be honest with you, they're both two important drafts coming up. Bryant, is there more importance now to play these young players, get them some reps so we can identify them for the future, for when the Trent Williams and the George Kittles and everyone else, when those contracts expire and they potentially leave, we have the replacements ready to go?
It's hard. It's very hard. And you want to see your young guys get out there and get practice time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what about your veteran players who need practice time?
Yeah.
So who's standing by the water cooler? And when you're going in the game, who's going to be playing? It's your vets, not your rookies, not your young guys. So it's kind of like the strong will survive. If you're a really good rookie, if you're really, really talented, it's
Yeah.
gonna show. And you're gonna come in and you're gonna play a certain way, you're gonna walk a certain way, you're gonna talk a certain way. And they're gonna recognize it. And then they're gonna put you as a starter. You're not a rookie anymore. You're a starter. It's a little different. Everybody else can describe you as a rookie who's not on the team, but everybody who's on the team, you're starting, and that's all that
Right.
matters. Rookie, what it doesn't that doesn't matter. So I do think that the rookies need more time and more practice. That's why I keep pushing for practice times to go back to like the good old days, and even add
Oh, yeah.
preseason. But they're not going to do that. And
No.
that's a whole
No.
other thing. They're not going to do that. But that's the only way I see them getting any practice time, unless they are a all in all out better player than the starter.
Yeah. The thing is, though, what the 49ers tend to do is we draft these rookies and we have them. Then they go out and sign these veteran free agents.
Yep.
And they come in and they wind up playing ahead of these young guys. Case in point, a prime example of that is Logan Ryan, who we picked up last year, end of the season. I mean, the guy was on vacation on a boat, and we called him and said, "We want you to come in and play." And he wound up starting, and I know it was out of necessity, right, that he came in. But even in the Super Bowl, he actually started at nickel instead of us trying to put one of our younger guys out there. And it's like, okay, what are we doing here? Why aren't we, challenging these young guys to step up, see what they have? Because in a year or two, we need to know if they can play, right? So that's the dynamic. That's what's hard to gauge.
And that's what's interesting. It's like, why are you to continue to have somebody on your team if you don't trust that player?
Yeah,
Sooner or later,
exactly.
you have to trust that player. They told Mr. Ryan that go ahead and go on your vacation. We'll be okay. Go ahead and go on your vacation. So what do you mean we'll be okay? What it meant is they're okay with losing a couple games going into the December and before the playoffs, and told them go ahead and have vacation. We're going to be in the playoffs. That's when we're going to need you. But if they're like a real necessity, like they did they really need him? They didn't need him. The Niners were doing
No.
great. They wanted to have somebody out there that was a veteran for themselves, so they had themselves maybe a security blanket. But it wasn't for the players. The players, they were playing fine. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people don't say it, but I'll say it. And I'll say it for a long time. Oliver Oliver was a good guy, and there was like one or two passes he got burned on, and that's why
Yep.
he got pulled out. He
Yep.
was doing his job, but everybody will go back and say, "Look at that pass," and then they'll say, "Oh, he got torched," and that's the end of it. It's not. He was a good tackler, and when we switched from him and went to a different style, so yes, I wish they would try the rookies a little bit more, or at least have a different way of looking at them. Some practice time or something. But that's why you got
Yeah.
veterans too. They've been in the league for a little while. They know a thing or two.
And Kenny is.
And that's very true. But we did have a rookie come in. What was it, around week 13 a couple of years ago, and he has performed admirably. And he was Mr. Irrelevant, former Mr. Irrelevant. He's Mr. Relevant now,
Mm-hmm.
folks. And we Elijah Mitchell came in after Mostert got hurt.
Yeah.
And he had a good season.
Exactly.
Guy has had issues staying on the field though, right?
Right. He's injured.
But it's like Kyle only plays rookies out of necessity, and some of these guys are good players that could actually be making an impact out there. Um, like, did having Logan Ryan at nickel kind of hurt us in the Super Bowl? I don't. That didn't hurt us as bad as when Greenlaw went down and we
That
didn't
hurt us
have a
more.
proper linebacker to go
Yes.
in. But sitting on the bench, we have guys that have sideline to sideline speed, guys that are
Mm-hmm.
faster than Burks, Graham, and Winters.
Yeah.
But they were rookies, so they got left on the bench while Burks got burned by Kelsey.
Yeah.
You know, um, it's just that it comes to a certain point in time where it's like, Kyle, I know you want them to, be around the team, learn the system, but at some point you're hindering their development because now they're not getting actual game time until their second season. And either way, you have to go through those game time growing pains.
Right.
So, why is it better to do it year 2 versus year 1? Because now you have one less year of team control on a rookie contract with the
Yep.
guy.
And that's very true. You're wasting a year basically. And I understand
Yep.
some guys need that year to learn how to train, get their body up to snuff, blah blah blah. But we're talking about getting the guy on the field for 5 to 10 plays, maybe, because they're backups, right? You're not going to pull the starter just if the starter needs a blow. Okay, we can turn to this guy. Let's get him out there. But we don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
We sign these older veterans. Okay, you come in and play. And Logan Ryan was the big head scratcher because he's a safety. Yet we played him at nickel. And with young guys like, Darrell Luter Jr. and Samuel Womack,
Sammy Womack.
it's like, was he really the best option? Or are you really just that hungry and set on having a veteran that you don't trust these guys? And I say all this to say we have 10 picks in this draft. And it seems like the 49ers are dead set on using all 10 right now. And even if they trade some, we're looking at 8 picks. And it's like, okay, are we going to use these 8 picks and these guys are just going to sit around and do nothing for a year and we don't know what they will be? Like, we'll only see them in preseason and then that's it. They'll be a distant memory for the whole year. I think the
Look at
evaluation
what
process
Ronnie.
needs change.
I agree. Ronnie Bell is a prime example of this. Last year preseason, he was tearing it up,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
it was like wow, we need to get this guy on the field, and then the season comes along and he doesn't exist except for returning kicks when Ray
Ret-
McLeod was out.
it's exactly what you and Bryant said. These guys don't play unless someone else gets injured. Unless someone like Ray got hurt. That's why he was able to play. And in week 3 versus the Giants, remember Ayuk got hurt the previous week, so he didn't play versus the Giants. That's why we saw Ronnie Bell in that receiver. That's it. Other than that, he didn't play until last week of the season when we took guys out. And it's like, okay, we kind of really wasted him. He could have gotten some snaps, gotten some reps. And I think we got to do better. Get these guys in. Even Kenny Cope says Womack and Luter would have been fine had they put him in the game. I agree. Okay, so I want to get you guys with a scenario now. Okay, so Bryant, you mentioned at 31 you had Kool-Aid McKitchery as your guy. David, you
Well,
have. Whoop, sorry.
Kool-Aid is my speculation pick. He's not
Okay.
my
Well,
which
speculation pick. Okay, I'm fine with that. If you have a speculation pick, or if someone's your guy you're targeting, that's what I want to get to. David, do you have a speculation pick or a player you want there?
Um, well, it's kind of a fantasy, but J.C. Latham,
Mm-hmm.
that six
Okay.
foot six, three hundred and thirty
Yeah,
five pound monster that runs a
that mountain.
4.85
Yeah,
40.
yeah,
I mean, you talk about Brock don't have to worry about the edges getting to him because you'd have Trent Williams on one side, him on the other,
right.
and then think about this. Kick McKivitz into right guard where he doesn't have to deal with speed rushers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which is his liability, right?
all of a sudden, the offensive line is upgraded,
Yep.
and you know what? I still, I've never been a Brindle fan, and numbers wise, yeah, he didn't have the penalties last year, but watching tape, he got, I've rewatched the season quite a few times at this point, just in my spare time, and that guy got pushed around a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we need a center that can take on a defensive lineman one on one and win.
And these guys who can anchor
But
and be stout, just like you
yep.
said, anchor and win. Okay. So hold up. Let me get back to my question here. 31 comes. You put on your GM hats for a moment. 31 comes, but the guy you coveted is gone. Gone, gone, gone. And the team comes to you and says, hey, we want this pick. Do you trade out and get more picks based on the conversation we had earlier about these guys may not play? Do you trade out and get more picks? Or do you take a guy because he could be a potential starter right now?
It really depends on on not my guy's gone, right?
Right.
But what kind of package are they offering? Because if they're talking like we move down a few spots, but you can still get a good player at that point, and then you we're adding 2-3 picks to this year's draft, or maybe even getting a couple next year. Then yeah, you trade down because your guy's gone, and the value ain't there, right?
Yeah. Wait, hold on 1 second. The reason why I asked this, because I actually polled one more draft expert, and he had us trading back. This was the one guy who said we would trade back. And he somehow had us trading back into the mid 40s. Right? That's more than a few
Well, that's
spots.
quite a
It was,
bit.
yeah, that's mid 40s. And he threw in a couple of extra picks like in the later rounds, right? Like the fifth or sixth. But mid 40s. Is that something you would consider?
Depends on the package.
I'm saying, like,
You know, how much are
we're,
they? How much are they
we're giving you
offering
something
beyond
in the
that?
mid
Say,
40s and a fifth and six.
and a fifth and sixth.
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't do it because that player we're getting will have that 5th year option. We'll get 5 years
yeah,
with them. And the player in the second round, that's just a 4-year contract, right?
yep,
So, and with how Kyle sits, guys, we kind of need that 5th year option.
right. Because you're going to lose a year automatically.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, if they offer us like the 45, and then maybe like a fourth and a fourth, a sixth, and then like maybe a fifth next year or something like that, I would do it. But for the 45, a fifth and a sixth, I don't think that adds up to the 31.
See, I don't think teams are going to pay that much. Kenny says move back to 36 tops. Let's hear from the other Culp, the well-dressed Culp. Sharp dressed man in his black button down shirt here. We got on red Niners shirt. Look at this guy. Got to upgrade the show. This isn't Sunday morning, man.
It's just a regular shirt. It's like I was like I didn't want to put a t-shirt on because I've been wearing a t-shirt all day.
I
I
gotcha.
I'm like I want to wear
But
something that's gonna be soft and make me feel
yeah.
good.
But
uh,
Brian, would you go into the 40s or would you want to keep into the high 30s? Like, how far would you go?
so I'm really weird. I wouldn't trade with certain players and certain
Certain
teams. I
teams,
wouldn't do it.
right, right.
I wouldn't do it because like we already kind of there's other teams that don't trade with certain teams. It's like tradition. I wouldn't really trade. I really wouldn't. It's been said before. A couple other people have said it. And I'll say it too. Just trade the whole first round pick away. We don't really ever need a first round pick, so they just keep trading it, trading it. Maybe you can get like 4 or 5 in one year. you know. But then if you had 4 or 5, what would you really do with it? You get all the best players, and then you'd have
Mm-hmm.
like some super team. For
Yep.
how long? They're rookies, so they're not gonna play that first year. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
exactly. Kyle.
I don't know. And then like somebody offer you like because your guy's not there, then I guess at that moment you got to take the best player available.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's really just like it's a cool idea, but I need to see who and what is being offered
Yeah.
before I can say yeah.
Yeah. One thing out of the John Lynch presser also is that they asked him about trading that pick, and you said when you're there you got to be flexible, and sometimes there are teams lower than you who want to jump back into the first round, so you got to take that phone call and you got to be willing to listen. So it could be possible that we do see a move, especially you know um, as you mentioned earlier, he had 22 players with a first round draft grade, and the math don't math. If they're 22 and we're at 31, then it's like, all right, we got second and third round grades on the rest of our guys. Why not take a deal and get more picks, right? It's going to be an interesting Thursday night's going to be interesting, to say the least, because we really don't know in what direction they'll go. It's all over the place. It kind of is.
Well, you never know what's going to happen until the draft goes, though. I mean, that's the whole
Right,
thing. Like
until
all
the
on
players
mock
start to
draft,
fall.
that's exactly it too. We don't know who's going to fall. We don't know who. Like teams always reach, and there's always a group like probably 4 to 5 reaches in the first round, or at least the scouts consider them reaches. The teams obviously don't, right?
Yeah.
But there's 4 or 5 reaches in the first round, and so we get 4 or 5 guys dropping to us, right? So 22 first round grades, and we don't obviously he's not going to tell us what those 22 players are because you don't give out that info. Um, but the all the offensive tackles that they've
Hmm.
talked to at the combine and beyond,
Yep.
it makes me wonder how many of those guys are those 22 players, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, we talked to what we talked to Troy Fontenot, J.C. Latham. They went up to Washington's pro day with Chris Forrester, our offensive
Yeah.
line coach,
Took the actual O
right?
line coach to check him out.
So, and there a lot of folks are speculating that it was Roger Rosengarten.
Uh huh.
Okay, Troy Fontenot was there too. So that they were up there checking out the prospects, and they more than likely took a good look at both those guys
Yeah.
because obviously Rosengarten's a right tackle, Fontenot's the left tackle. Could the plan be to take both of them? Because Rosengarten, he's got a what third round
Yeah.
grade, depending on what site you're on, right?
Right.
So it just it brings up more questions than answers if you look at the list of how many players and who we've
Yeah.
talked to. It
Well,
does.
you segue into what I wanted to ask next. You know, um, it's clearly like John Lynch said. We're not only drafting for now, we're drafting for the future, and we know that somewhere along the line, this offensive line is going to need an overhaul. Right, with Trent leaving, um, Aaron Banks becoming a free agent. Who knows if they'll re-sign him? The last free agent left guard we had was Lincoln Tomlinson, and they let him walk, right? And they just don't seem to re-sign offensive linemen to long-term deals. So, how many offensive linemen do you think we'll actually take in this draft?
Ooh, Brian, if you want to go first.
I mean, you
Maybe
guys
two.
have done mock drafts and such.
Maybe two.
Maybe two.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. See, I'm not the biggest one. David will tell you, I'm not the one who's saying go O line, go O line. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I just don't say that's what the Niners are going to do. I don't. I
Hmm.
won't be mad either, but
Right.
I'm not. I'm not going O line, and even if I'm doing my own draft, I'm not going O line. I think we can get the O line later, fifth, sixth, seventh.
Well, yeah. I
My
mean,
draft.
I mean draft overall. I mean, not just the first round. I mean, out of the entire draft, do we take two offensive linemen, three offensive
So
linemen? Like
potentially
10
maybe
out of the 10
15.
picks, how many do
So
would we use on O line?
okay, so out of potentially the 10 picks and maybe getting five free agents, undrafted free agents, having 15 people, I still think we're going to get maybe two O line. I don't see
Two.
us getting a
Okay.
bunch. I don't see us getting a bunch. We swapped that. I don't know if we swapped and got rid of Gutierrez, but we got the international player from Dallas.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
I imagine they're gonna take a look at him.
Ooh,
David, how
that's
many offensive
interesting.
linemen you see us? Yeah. Hopefully he
Um,
plays like because Gutierrez was just there.
He was
Like
there.
he was just another guy who was just there.
He was just a
Yeah.
guy.
He a feel good story. Love to see it and hear about it, but he's just there. But David, what were you gonna say?
so with Brindle's contract being up,
Mm-hmm.
and how Kyle sits rookies, I see us taking a center at some point. Don't know who. They've talked to a few. They've actually, I think that they've talked to, was it Jackson Powers, the best center. They've
Yeah,
actually talked to the second best center,
they
the
talked to
third,
all of
Tanner
them.
Bortolini, Bo Limmer. They've
Uh huh.
literally talked to five centers.
Yeah.
So I think we're taking a center. at some point. Um, and I think we're going to end up taking, if we stay with all 10, we're taking 3 offensive linemen.
3. Okay.
I could see us taking a, bona fide center, a guard, and a tackle.
Is there any particular
Because, like,
sides to that? Right guard, right tackle, left tackle?
well, when it comes to guard, I honestly think it's going to be a left guard because we haven't heard of them going in contract negotiations with Aaron Banks,
Nope, not at all. Not
right?
a peep.
Um, and when it comes, like I said, Brindle's got 1 year left on his deal, and then it's time to replace our center. And we have a young quarterback, so it only makes sense to get the center of the future, to work
Yeah.
with Brock, and hopefully he ain't sweaty down there. Shout
That
out to
helps.
Alex Mack. But and then we got to be thinking the replacement for Aaron Banks, just
Mm-hmm.
like we did with Tomlinson, because we had Tomlinson, we drafted Banks, then he showed up. I don't know if was out of shape. I don't remember the reports, but he ended up getting injured, and then he did not play that season, and he came in a second season, right?
Yep.
So I honestly see that being the same scenario. We pick a guard, and he's going to be sitting for a year, and then he's going to come in and he's going to play the left side. But the center and the tackle, that might be the tackle's the interesting one because if they take Rosengarten, he's a bona fide right tackle.
Uh-huh.
So that could actually signal that we're going to be moving Colton McKivitz to the left side, which I might not be a fan of. I mean, honestly, he didn't play bad when he was filling
Yeah,
in for
he,
Trent
he he
Williams.
filled in there, and he wasn't that bad.
So I'm not necessarily against it, but it just the tackle we take that's it's that's the interesting part
Yeah.
because all these guys are either they played left tackle, they played right tackle, or some played right tackle, moved to left tackle for their
Yep.
senior season, or
Yep.
that they're all a little different. And Rosengarten and what is it, Talise Fuaga from Oregon State, those guys have both just played right tackle. They've never played
Mm-hmm.
left. So, and I honestly, we went to Washington. We talked to Fontenot and Rosengarten.
Yep.
So it ought to be interesting, just to see how the Niners navigate this.
Yeah.
And like last year we took that guy, that tackle from Division II in the undrafted free agency. What was his name? Fisher.
Yeah. He was a
And
big
I
mountain of a
watched tape
guy.
on that guy.
Yeah.
He was mauling people.
Yep.
And the second we cut him, because that cut him, and with thoughts to stash him on the practice squad,
Right.
Pittsburgh moves in.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with what was it, Il Manning.
Il Manning.
That same thing happened
And he
there,
actually played in
right?
preseason and looked pretty decent. He showed a little prowess.
Yes, yeah, and it's just, and then we keep a guy like Nick Zakel, who did not look good in preseason.
Nope.
I'm trying to make sense of it all,
Yeah.
but at this point, let's get a good competition going on. Let's draft 3 guys.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. We got to start looking for the future, looking toward the future. And I think we need to bring in some guys just to give them a real hard look, just to see, could they be the next guys up, especially on the O line, especially what it means to Brock. And we gotta address that. And I think the earlier you address it, the better. Right? Try to identify a guy right now. Okay, so take you guys back. In the 2020 draft, we all know the 49ers traded DeForest Buckner to the Colts, and immediately drafted his replacement. Now, this is just hypothetical. Everybody out there, just take a breath and work with me. Let's bring it to this draft. Let's say the 49ers trade Brandon Ayuk. Should they draft his immediate replacement or address another need?
Believe it or not, the mock draft series that ended Saturday, I traded Ayuk
Mm-hmm.
in 2 mock drafts, and
Blasphemy. No.
both times I took a wide receiver
Aha.
with a 31, and the first rounder I got, I took an offensive tackle.
Okay.
And then later in the draft, I doubled up and I took another wide receiver. And typically it was Luke McCaffrey, because I honestly think that he's going to be a 49er.
Yeah.
Out of all the legacy players, I could totally see Luke McCaffrey being a 49er.
Well, John said that. He says he
So,
likes legacy players. There's something to that. So, one's a coming. My money would be on Luke. Yeah.
and you I honestly believe we'll take Frank Gore like really late in the draft if he's still there.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think we will. But
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, if anyone's ever looked at Frank Gore, but he looks so much like his dad.
Yeah, he does. They're like
He,
twins. Yeah. He's just
they
younger.
are.
He's a
They
younger
are.
Frank Gore Jr. He's just a younger version. But hold on. But you would draft you did your mocks and you drafted an immediate wide receiver replacement in 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Who were those names? Do you remember?
Was it Adrian Mitchell? I'll actually look up the prospect so I can give you the proper name.
Okay.
But I remember he was 6'2".
Was it
I looked at it.
Xavier?
We took Xavier Worthy with the second draft. That guy that ran a
Okay.
4.21.
Yeah, the fast guy. Yeah.
And I was totally thinking punt returner at that point, or kick returner, because of the new kickoff rules.
Yeah.
But we did. We drafted the fastest guy in the draft, although we all know he's destined to be a Raider in round 1.
Oh yeah. We know how they do. Well, Brian, are you in the same boat? If we trade Ayuk, would you immediately draft his replacement or address a different position?
I think it also depends on what placement in the draft you get. So, if you were to trade really high up, then you really have a pick at anybody. So then it's best player available again, right? But if you get a mid rounder or something, in the first, then you don't get to pick everybody. I think you probably read it. There's been speculation. Harbaugh wants Ayuk for the 5th round, first overall. It's the 5th pick in the first round. 5th pick in the first round, and that would put us pretty high up there. Go get Marvin Harrison's son.
But if you're that high up,
You can get anybody.
shot at anybody.
I'd take
You
him.
can get J.C. Latham, one of these high end tackles, right?
Yeah.
So
I
do you do
I think
in that scenario?
I think I'd get a really good player. If I felt stronger about JC Litham,
Well, him or any of the top tackles or defensive linemen.
I think I'd just take best player available, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair enough.
Well, so I'm looking at the draft. So, Adonai Mitchell from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
That was the guy I ended up drafting to replace Ayuk, and he's 6'2".
He's big.
Runs
Yeah.
a 4.36 40, which is actually faster than he's bigger and faster than Ayuk.
Yeah. Yeah, I know about that
But
guy.
that's one of those. It's one of those that's still a rookie, though. You never know what they're going to turn into, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. Especially how we treat rookie wide receivers. You just never know about them. It usually takes 2 years until we say, "Oh, okay, this guy's going to be something." That's just the way it works in this system. You know. Um, Hold on. Dun, dun, dun. So, um, I think day one can be boring. Day two might be a boring, but day three is where all the action is going to really go down with all those picks that we have there, right? The
Oh, that's gonna
7
be.
of the 10. Yeah. And that's when the 49ers really tend to build out their roster. That's when we got the Fred Warners and the George Kittles and all those guys. All right.
Mhm.
So, do you think there's going to be any trading at all on day three, knowing how they treat those like back end of the draft guys?
I really think so.
Yeah.
And I honestly think we might have some players involved in trades to get draft picks.
Oh,
And
really?
I'm mainly focused on, like, there was a report earlier in the season that, I looked into and don't know how real it is, to be honest. But there was a report saying that Danny Gray, Ambry Thomas, and Elijah Mitchell are all on the trade block.
I can see that.
And if we get anything for those guys, it's going to be day three picks,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So I'm not saying all three of them will be traded, but I could see them, especially a guy like Danny Gray who hasn't really got a shot. With
Not at
his
all.
with his 4.3 speed, 6 foot 4.3 speed, I could
Right.
see another team wanting to take a shot at him and throw us like a fifth round pick for the guy or something.
That's a scenario I can get behind. I don't mind that. A seldom used player, we're going to get something for him. I take that. All three, actually. I mean, Elijah Mitchell just can't see the field for nothing. So, might as well get something for him, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And Ambry Thomas, we've tried him plenty of times, and for some reason, it's just not working out. I don't know why. Um, he looks more inconsistent. He's just inconsistent. That's what I would say about him. His play is just inconsistent.
That kind of reminds me of another third round corner we had, a while back named Witherspoon,
Yep, a
right?
kilo. Same scenario.
And he was inconsistent with us, and then he bounced around a couple teams, and
Mm-hmm.
then he signed with the Rams last year, and he was their best corner.
Yeah. Well, that shows you. That tells you about their roster more than anything. They really were depleted, especially they let Jalen Ramsey go and a bunch of other guys. I mean, and you saw what happened to Akilo with the spoon when we played him. I mean, Christian McCaffrey punked him like,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
like, and that's your best corner. He's getting punked by our running back. Okay, hope you can live with that.
I don't see why we couldn't, trade Ambry to like the Steelers for a sixth or seventh.
There's
You
plenty of
know,
teams out there that can use a young corner, and Ambry has some good tape that we can put in front of people. You can say, hey, watch this interception versus the Rams. Watch how he got this PBU versus the Jaguars, right? We can piece some things together to sell them and get a late
yep.
round pick. I don't mind that, especially since we're so deep at corner. We brought in a bunch of free agents, and I'm pretty sure we're targeting some in the draft. He's a movable piece. So if we could get something for him, more power to us.
Well, our other corners like Womack in the preseason, he always shows that he can play,
Yeah.
and then the season hits, and it's like, okay, why isn't this guy getting some time? Like
Mm-hmm.
last year, he was hurt, And then by the time he came back from injury, pretty much our corners were all set. That was it.
Yeah.
They're and he came out and started playing on special teams, right? So this year, I'm hoping he doesn't get hurt,
Yeah.
and we see some serious competition going on here. Luter Jr. also got hurt in preseason
Exactly.
last year,
Exactly.
and and so here we are thinking, we need to draft. All kinds of folks are like, we need to draft a corner. Okay, what do we have in these two?
Yeah.
Like,
That's what I'm saying.
answer me what we have in these two, and then I'll agree that we need to draft a corner. If
Right.
and no one can. Everyone's like, well, I don't know. I didn't see enough of them. So that's the outcome of them not playing. But I saw some things from Luter Jr. that makes me think he can play though.
Mm-hmm.
Like he caught a kick returner from behind.
Yep.
You
Track
know,
him down. That was a big
he
play for
did.
us.
He ran him down from behind. So the guy's
Mm-hmm.
got wheels.
Yep.
And he's also got size because I think he's 6 foot.
He is. He's 6 foot with very long arms. Exactly what we look for in the corner.
And that's an outside boundary corner right there,
Yep.
right? And then Womack, yeah, he's kind of short, but he's also got long arms, you
Long
know.
arms. And plays the ball in the air well. We've seen it.
Yep. Yeah, and that's kind of what we look at for nickel, right?
Yeah.
But but guy also needs to come up and play the run though, and that's something Lenore excelled at. Was when we
Yeah.
started bringing Ambry Thomas in to play the boundary, we moved him into nickel,
Yep.
and it was like having another linebacker on the field that could cover a wide receiver. You
Yep.
know, um, it was kind of insane. So some of the hits Lenore had, like that one on Swift. I keep talking about it. In the Eagles game where Swift caught the ball and was starting to turn, and Lenore just came in,
They lit him up.
popped him, and jarred that ball out. And Swift was on the ground like, for a minute because he had the wind knocked out of
Yep.
him. But and I mean, he excelled at that. He excelled at playing the outside. There was a report, and I haven't heard a follow up on it, that they're in contract extension negotiations with Lenore.
I heard rumblings of that also. And I hope that's true. Because we always talk about how the 49ers like to reward their own, the guys that they draft that excel. He's one of them, right? He's a guy. It's funny,
Mm-hmm.
like and this goes back to our conversation about playing these young guys, giving them a chance. He's one of those young guys that was thrown into the starting lineup as a rookie because of injury. He had to play. Then he himself got injured and had some personal things, and they kind of like pushed him to the side and forgot about him. And he didn't see the field until another injury, right? If you remember, he didn't see a field until Emmanuel Mosley got injured. And then they was like, all right, we got to put him out there because, he's the next guy up. And look how he's excelled. Like, that's the perfect scenario of why you need to play these young guys and see what they have. Because we could potentially be sitting on some diamonds here. And I mentioned that 2020 draft earlier where we traded Buckner and like immediately drafted Kinlaw with his bad knee. And everybody's like, we could have drafted Tristan Wirth at right tackle instead. Or there's another right tackle, a guy from Indy who's playing very well. We could have drafted him. We could have drafted someone else instead of Kinlaw. And the 49ers, we had a defensive tackle sitting on the roster that we could have easily played, and that was DJ Jones. DJ Jones was just sitting there. And I know he got injured and stuff early in his career too, but he was there. Bryant, you want to jump in here?
Well, I wanted to just try to think about this. It's the 2019 season. We go to the Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo is our quarterback. We
Yeah,
just lose because of the missed throw, and Buckner now goes to the Colts. Correct.
we traded him to the Colts. Correct.
So at that point, what are you suggesting we do? Get a different quarterback at that moment, or get a
No, no, no,
different?
no, no. What I'm
No,
saying,
but for the 2020 season, who was our options for the 2020 season? They took the best player available with Kinlaw, right? They
no,
were like projecting to take Kinlaw for a long time, weren't they?
no. They drafted to immediately refill the position they traded away.
So the 2020 draft, who should the Niners have taken in the first round with that trade?
They could have drafted Tristan Wirth. They could have drafted the offensive lineman that's playing in Indy right now.
Oh.
Like, remember, we had Mike McGlinchey and I think Brunskill at right guard, right tackle and right guard. Like two guys that could have been upgraded for, right? And it's the same scenario we're at now. Like we got McKivitz at right tackle and Feliciano at right guard and Brendel at center. Yeah, they're serviceable. We can win with them. They can get the job done. But if there's an opportunity to upgrade, why not take it? And that's what happened in 2020. There was an opportunity to upgrade those positions, but instead we drafted to immediately fill the need. And I know the scenario is different that I'm talking about because we had DJ Jones at tackle, defensive tackle, sitting on the roster. We could have easily plugged him in there and then to be the starter, right? And drafted another defensive tackle later in the draft. But it's the same kind of mindset.
I always get confused because the Kinlaw pick that year we drafted Kinlaw, we
Yeah,
also
it's
drafted
2020.
Brandon Ayuk, right?
Yeah, we traded. I believe we traded back into the first round and got Ayuk.
So they went after the player that they just replaced. They
Yeah,
just got rid of, and then they
yeah.
traded back in to do what you're
To get
talking about, but not to do it to the offensive line to go after
right,
best player available.
right.
So what do you feel like right now? Do you feel like they're going to take a defensive lineman this draft? Because that's what I'm kind of getting those vibes from you right now.
No,
We
no,
want them
no.
to take O line. We want them to take O line, but they're not going to do what we want. They're going to do what
Yeah,
they've done in the past,
yeah.
and they
No,
just
I was
got
just
rid of
saying.
Kinlaw. They
Yeah,
just
I
got
was
rid
just
of Kinlaw, and it's like,
yeah, I was just bringing up that scenario as far as playing young players and giving them the opportunity, right? You're taking a chance on them and then drafting wiser. Like that's why I was saying in this draft they can go in every direction because we're talking about the future here. We're no longer going to have that quarterback room that's under $1 million, right?
so let
Brock's
me
going to
throw this
get
in.
paid, so we got to
Let,
start restructuring our roster to accommodate for that.
let me throw this scenario at you. Okay, because we're thinking of the future, right? And Brock is young,
Hmm.
but anytime he could get hurt, right? And I know we got the passer
Yeah,
nod, and we got Brandon Allen, right? We all like him, but would you be
yeah.
so mad if they drafted a quarterback in the first round this year?
In the first
If you
round,
got the right quarterback, you don't need an offensive line.
no, you still got to protect that quarterback. And I'll give you the perfect example. Going back to 2020, let's look at the 2020 Super Bowl when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember, the Chiefs' offensive line was decimated. They couldn't protect Patrick Mahomes to save their lives. He was just running the whole game. It was a travesty the way that game went down. So you need an offensive line. You got to protect that quarterback. If he's running for his life, even the Patrick Mahomes will not survive.
Well, Patrick Mahomes might be really good, but he's not the most most mobile quarterback out there. I know he's been to 2 Super Bowls recently and 3, and I think the whole thing with the 49ers getting held the way they did, that's just me thinking, but obviously there was some holdings that happened. And then you go and play against Tom Brady, and everybody's kind of thinking this is a Cinderella story. So I think the Chiefs were humbled that Super Bowl. That was
Well,
a nice way
they
to
had
say
no offensive line. Go back and watch that. Their entire offensive line was decimated.
it. It's weird, huh?
They was coming through like Swiss cheese. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul looked like he was 21 again. Just coming
Didn't
through, unblocked.
didn't Patrick Mahomes also have a hurt leg?
He had to hurt something, but even still, like as soon as the ball was snapped, somebody was coming through. It was terrible. They was playing backups upon backups there. It was bad. But so that's what I'm saying. You gotta protect the quarterback. You gotta, even if your quarterback is great. Patrick Mahomes is mobile. We've seen him run around. But if guys are just coming through, if you're not giving him 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I mean, look at us. We had a perfect play drawn up. Final play of our Super Bowl. Guy comes right through. We can't give him 2 seconds to plant his feet and throw the ball. We have to settle for a field goal.
But we had a perfect play, but it wasn't executed perfectly
By whom? By which unit?
by one of our offensive lineman players that
Offensive
we feel
lineman,
very
yeah.
good about. That we feel very good about. That they would play in the Super Bowl again if they could do it over again.
Yeah.
Even the best players, the worst players have mental mistakes.
Yeah,
So
of course.
if it would have been an offensive lineman selected in the first round, would we be screaming for his head too? Probably, because it was just a mistake. So anytime anybody makes
Yeah.
a mistake, we got to get rid of that person. The draft selection it really has nothing to do with anything. It really doesn't. It just gives that person an opportunity to say, I deserve more money because I was picked first.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, no,
well,
no. You got to execute. You
you're
have to
not.
play.
Yeah, you need to execute and you need to play for that contract, but that's not what
Right.
necessarily happens. We've seen a lot of offensive linemen go in the first round and not necessarily pan out, especially for the 49ers. And we've had offensive linemen retire early on us and say, oh, well, I'm going to come back. But then when we say we own your rights, they hold out on us longer. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I think we just got to get quality players that fit our scheme.
And
And if that player isn't there in the first round, it doesn't matter how great of an offensive lineman. If they're not going to fit our scheme, we
well,
don't
yeah,
get them.
yeah. They
Yeah,
have to fit the scheme. They have to, have some type of prowess. I'm saying, but if there's a guy there who can upgrade, who's worth it, yeah, I think
I
you
see.
take it. Yeah.
I think that's the whole thing, though, too, though, Ty. It's going to be like somebody's going to say, oh, well, they could take an offensive lineman right now. There's one right there on the board, right there. And then somebody else, maybe more like you or somebody like David, is going to do more due diligence and look at the player and say, no, that they're not going to be a good fit for our team. Or maybe we're looking for a right tackle, but we want a right tackle who can play left tackle too, right?
Right.
Because we're trying to band-aid two things right here, right? Because we have to
Yeah.
get Trent Williams replacement today, right? And see, that's the whole thing is everybody wants to do everything today, and they're not thinking
You
about
can't.
what's going to
No.
happen next season or the season later. We keep signing these these veteran players to 1 to 2 years. We might find a free agent next year that's a veteran that's going to come on and do better than a rookie would do. But I know what you're saying. Get that rookie, get a lower contract, get them there for a longer period of time, and then when they get better, then you can pay them if you choose to. Because it's homegrown, right? You're going to be like, yeah, we
Yeah.
like you, or if you're not any good, we're going to let you go. And at that point, again, it's like, do we? I don't know, Ty. It's really hard to just take offensive linemen because everybody's screaming, take offensive linemen.
No, I don't think you do. Like I said, we can go in any direction in this draft because I feel that we're not really drafting for this season. We're drafting for the future, right? We're getting players that we're saying, hey, we
So,
know,
let's,
we know,
let's go
we
back
know
to that.
that we know that Mooney Ward's contract is up after 2024. So we're going to draft Kool-Aid McKittrick, and he's going to be our guy in 2025. The same thing we did last year. We knew that Tayshaun Gibson's contract was going to be up after the season. So we traded up and got Jair Brown. And we were thinking coming into 2024, our starting safeties was going to be Hufunga and Jair Brown. That's what I'm saying. That mindset.
So, with that mindset, the best player available, we're at 31. Niners don't do anything. And we have Bo Nix sitting there at 32. And the Niners select him. How do you react? How do you feel, Ty?
See, I don't think that's the way to go because we've identified Brock as our quarterback. Like that position, that's a one of one position, right? So it's like, okay, we need to protect Brock in the future. Let's get a defensive lineman. Or we know that we only have Leonard Floyd is only signed for 2 years. We're going to need an edge rusher. We need to get another edge rusher. Or like I said, Mooney Ward's contract is up. We need to replace Mooney. Let's go get the best corner that's available. Like, we got to address those people that may be leaving. Like, Brock isn't going anywhere. We all know everyone in the building just loves him. John Lynch could have his babies if he could. So he's going nowhere. So I don't think quarterback is the way to go unless you can trade for him and get even more value back.
What happens when Brock gets hurt? You know, I mean, everybody loves Brock, right? Brock, you know, we all want his babies, his tractor, right? Congratulations, he just got married.
The tractor. That's right.
Right? But what happens when we have to put the passer not in, or Allen? Or what happens when, oh, God forbid, we go back to Sam Darnold, right? Because Minnesota cuts him. At least Sam Darnold was a first-round pick, right? So picks don't matter, right, if we're looking at that. No. But even every good team has a viable backup, has somebody in the backfield waiting. Right now, we can just say we have cheap quarterbacks. And that's what I'm saying is, you know, if we was to go for a quarterback, they are thinking of the future. Even with Brock Purdy as the future starting quarterback, they're thinking of getting somebody capable with just as good of talent, maybe even better talent, to even help push him or learn from him. So just because you get a quarterback right now, I hope everybody understands this. I'm not trying to push Brock Purdy anywhere or out the door anywhere.
No.
I am thinking of what's best for the team right now. And if we're not drafting because we have necessarily a need at any position, because they said they would run with our offensive line right back to the season and start. So they're not trying to upgrade anybody right now. We don't have to draft a certain player. So you could take a pick out of quarterback. If the best quarterback's sitting there right there at the draft and we take them, I think it is beneficial. But that's, you know, I agree. Take a corner or take somebody else. But I could see their logic if they did do that.
Yeah. Well, do you guys remember the report about, and I think it was just speculation, someone getting clickbait, and it might be obvious after I say it, but Kyle just trying to keep a super cheap quarterback room. And, you know, he's always going to draft a quarterback, or he's always going to have a young quarterback that's cheap because, you know, he wants to have this really good team on the field. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if that narrative was true, then, yeah, they would 100% be taking, like, Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. or maybe, like, J.J. McCarthy if he falls to 31. You know, right. None of us know how the draft's going to actually go, you know. But, you know, I could see us still taking a quarterback in this draft. I just don't think it's going to be early because of Brock. You know, I could see us in the late rounds taking a flyer on that, like that guy Slovis from BYU. Mm-hmm. Or I've actually watched a lot of tape on Devin Leary from Kentucky, and this is something no one really knows the guy, but he's a good QB, and it's either way, I could see us drafting a guy to try to keep the cost of our QB room down too for the next 4 years, because we're obviously going to be giving Brock that big contract, and him getting through the whole season uninjured is a big deal though. Because without him, and we have to bring in a Josh Dobbs, or Josh Dobbs is good for a couple games.
Right.
But if Brock is looking at being out 4 to 6 games, that's going to hurt.
Well,
And, that's a point in time where having a guy like Bo Nix would come in handy. But then, he's going to be future trade bait, right? Because then, we still have Brock. But what if, the whole scenario that Bo Nix is actually really good, just as good as Brock. And then it's like, then here come the speculation train rolling down the tracks 200 miles an hour, no brakes.
that quarterback
right?
controversy is going to be starting up again.
Yeah. And if we take Bo Nix at 31, then that's going to be right back in the QB controversy, the whole Trey Lance, James Richard, Garoppolo thing before Brock Purdy, came along. And then, the second year it was what? Brock Purdy, Trey Lance. Who's going to start, And we are going to be right back in the same boat if they do that. But, again, nothing should surprise us on draft night. Nothing.
No, nothing. Yeah. I just think, in speaking of, the quarterback and him getting injured, every team's number one priority going into a season is to, you've heard this phrase before, we got to keep the quarterback upright. We have to protect the quarterback. So with that in mind, I'm thinking your draft needs are, let's find a way to protect the quarterback better if need be, not we need to get a good backup. That's just what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the priority is let's get some big dudes in front of him that can protect them, instead of, all right, he's going to get hurt, we need a backup.
Okay.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
But remember, when those big dudes let someone go by and your backup ain't anybody. I mean, it's like you don't want to have one good tire for your spare. You'd like to have two good spares, right?
That's right. That's right. As many as you can.
I get it. It's like what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? You got to have a good line to keep your quarterback healthy. But if your quarterback's good enough, then like Cam Newton, it's hard to tackle him, right? If he can run around, he can do what he needs to do. He's
different.
Superman.
He was 6'5", 250. Like,
so
that's a big dude.
Maybe you get a bigger quarterback, or you get just a different style. I mean, like there's just directions that you can go where people are like, maybe we don't need this type of wide receiver because we have this. And, I get it. I definitely get it.
Yeah. Nah, Brock made it through last season. I think he's getting better and better. He's learning how to move and escape in the pocket and do things. And I know you could go down at any moment, but I think the priority is protect him better. And, I think they're fine with Josh Dobbs and Brandon Allen. But I do think they're going to draft another quarterback. I think you got to bring in either during the draft or in the undrafted free agency period, because you just need another arm in camp. And you need to always be looking at a guy. Like, is Brandon Allen really our best shot at backup? Right? I know Josh Dobbs played some games last year and he won and he looked good, but is he really our best shot at backup? Right? You always got to take a look at these guys because you just never know. But I think they're in love with Brock and he's not going anywhere. They're already talking about extending his contract and blowing that up, and his contract isn't up until after the 2026 season. Like, a reporter today said this is the final year of his rookie deal. That is incorrect. people do not regurgitate that, Brock has 2 years left on his contract. All right?
Yep.
Just keep that in mind. Sheesh, people.
Yeah, this next off season's when our first opportunity to extend him.
Extend him, yes. So there'll be, just like the hysteria is with Ayuk this year and with Nick Bosa last year, it'll be with Brock next season. But he still has a full season to go. And even if they do extend him, they do not have to give him $50 million in 2025. They can still pay him $1 million and push that money down the road. It's all about the language in the contract and how they pay people. Happens every year with a bunch of players.
Well, and truth be told, Brock seems like the type of guy where we're not going to be hearing he unfollowed the Niners on IG. We're not going to be hearing any of this drama because Brock's just going to be sitting in his John Deere tractor or driving a combine on the farm, letting his agent handle it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's a different beast. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be just like Nick Bosa was quiet. We didn't hear anything. It was just that he just wasn't signed. That's it. That's all we heard. He just didn't sign yet. It'll be the same with Brock. He just hasn't signed yet. He's out riding his tractors, doing his thing. So, it'll be fine. Look, Kenny always got to bring up these scenarios. Does Jimmy beat us in a throwaway game at the end of the season after we lock up the number 1 seed? Is Jimmy going to be healthy? When's the last time Jimmy made it through a full season?
As a backup to Tom Brady, he did.
No, he didn't.
He's got
He
a
got
good
hurt
chance.
then too. If you remember, he started when Brady was injured. He lasted 6 quarters.
Yeah. Jimmy's got Super Bowl rings too, backing up Tom Brady. So if he's sitting there on the bench for Carson Wentz, not Carson Wentz, I'm sorry. Carson Wentz is now a Kansas City Chief who also has a Super Bowl ring. So Jimmy Garoppolo can surely win another Super Bowl as a backup with Matthew Stafford. So if Matthew Stafford stays healthy, Jimmy could beat us in a throwaway game at the end of the year. I absolutely believe it.
Well, if it's like Brandon Allen versus Jimmy Garoppolo, the battle of the backups, I would have to think Jimmy can outdo Brandon Allen, right?
I don't know about that because look, James was the starter of the Raiders last year, right?
Yes, he was.
And they have Devontae Adams and they had Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
They had a decent offense around him, and he got benched.
Yes, he did.
For what? Aiden McConnell?
Yep. They threw no-name Aiden McConnell out there.
So it was like, can James actually come in with the backups and beat our backups?
He wasn't beating people with starters.
That's an excellent question, actually.
I tell you what, it will be a highly viewed game. Because a whole bunch of the faithful will just be tuning in to see if they tee off on James Richard when he drops back the pass, right? Even if it's just the backups, they'll be rooting for our backups to go out there and hit them. It'll be funny. That would be funny. That'd be a fun way to end this season, I tell you that much. All right, gentlemen, we've reached our time limit. It's been an awesome show. Thank you for indulging me and picking your minds with this draft stuff and the scenarios and different things like that. It is draft week. There's going to be a lot more draft talk coming up. But, fellas, tell everybody what you guys got going on this week.
Go ahead, David.
So we'll be simulcasting the draft. Actually, we have draft coverage going on. It'll be Bryant, me, and Kenny Colt. And, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Friday, it'll be my 100th show, which You know, that's it's kind of weird just saying that. You know, it doesn't. It feel. I know I've been in a lot more than 100 because I've been on all kinds of other people's channels. You know, but it is actually my 100th show on my
Yeah,
channel, and I'm
that's
kind of
good
proud of
stuff.
it. You know.
Woo! Applaud that man. I don't have fancy sound effects like the big guys, but woo! Congrats, man. It's a great milestone.
That is cool.
Right?
So yeah,
Yeah.
you can hear me, right?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, that
Yeah,
is really, really cool.
Bryant, you know our coffee talk show. The draft starts early enough in the day to the point where that's going to be like
That's
about our
right.
start time on
That's right.
Saturday.
On
Well,
Saturday, yeah.
yeah. So we discussed that a little bit. Wednesday, David will be doing the trivia show, and then we will go Thursday. Like you said, Kenny, it'll be on my show. We're hosting, but all of us are simulcasting. Then David will be hosting Friday, and I'm not sure if it'll be Kenny or Terradome hosting Saturday. So tune in. We should have Terradome with us the most of the draft, or if not in the entirety. Ty, if you'd like to pop in as well, even if it's only for 5 or 10 minutes, it'd be great. We will be doing it the entire day. And then, yeah, there shouldn't be a coffee show on Saturday because it's just going to probably be a little bit too early. I think the draft's going to start like right after we be getting done. So we're not going to do that at all. And we might have a Friday night show to talk a little bit about the draft, but, it depends on just how everybody's feeling because when you've been behind a computer for a while or a monitor or a camera for a little while, sometimes you got to get up and stretch. So just keep your notifications on. We'll know what's going on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Saturday night is the end of the draft. There probably will be a show at the end of that day. It might be on Kenny or David or my channel to maybe on David's to kick off that 100th episode or celebrate it the right way. But we'll be doing a little bit more of a panel where people can come in and talk about their thoughts and discuss that great kicker we just got, or that
Oh
new
yeah.
quarterback or whatever, right?
The punter we took in the first round.
There you go. That long snapper.
Yeah. So definitely, and then Sunday for sure we'll be doing probably the coffee talk. If not, you'll know in the notifications or community tab. And then I think Monday the show will be on my channel. So Coast to Coast will be back here, and you guys just turn your notifications on, and we'll keep it going. Next Monday we should have a lot to talk about. So
Oh
we
yeah.
do appreciate everybody. And Ty, great show today, really do. Really
Yeah, no,
appreciate you
thank you.
putting this
Thanks to
on.
you guys. Great show. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. This was awesome. These guys' links are in the description. Just go ahead, tag them up, make sure you follow them, like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, do all that good stuff. Thanks for everybody for joining. Stay faithful. David, take us home.
Hey, it's Go Niners and F all 31 other teams, as Corey Davis would say.
Darn tootin'. Good night, everybody.